ask you one final question? I've talked to a number of POWs from Vietnam and have asked them if the POW experience was the hardest experience they ever went through. And surprisingly, many of them say no. They say, you know, the loss of their wife later in life, or the loss of a child, or cancer was actually harder. But that the experience in Vietnam gave them the perspective and the resilience to better weather those subsequent hardships. Would you agree with that?
I don't know whether I would say it that way or not. I think when we were doing what we were doing, and I guess most especially during the siege, which was clearly 3 months of extremely unusual circumstances. We lived in mud underground bunkers, we ate sea rations, we never showered or changed our clothes, we took care of casualties. We reached our utilities were so caked in blood and mud that they were stiff on our legs, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think any of us ever looked at that as a hardship or, oh my God, what are we doing here? It's a cliche, but you just kind of go day to day doing your thing, and because that's what you're there to do. Now, part of that is, one thing I did realize later, and Ed sort of alluded to it, you definitely gain some strength from the people around you. I mean, no matter what was happening, when we first got up there, for example, it was tents on the surface of the ground, all of which were blown away. And we ended up laying on the ground taking care of casualties. But I would look over at Ed, and Ed would look over at me and would say, you know, this is what it is, man, do it, you know. So, and I don't think we ever sat in our bunker at night and said, you know, man, how did we get stuck with this terrible thing? We just didn't do that. We were doing what we wanted to do, and in a place where we needed to do it. We've talked many times about, you know, what has it meant later in life. And I don't know if I can correlate it with POWs or anything like that, but for both of us, Quezon especially, the whole experience in general, but Quezon especially, was clearly a watershed moment in our lives. I can't honestly say that it changed me or changed my value system, but I think what he was alluding to is that as you go through life, we all have our difficulties and travails and losses and personal losses and so forth. I think there is, what comes from an experience like that is you walk through that for 3 months and you walk out the other end wondering why in the name of God you're even alive. And it does offer you the perspective of when bad things really happen, you can fall back to that and say, you know, I don't know why that happened and it was a terrible thing, but life is filled with terrible things and you do what your duty is and you move on. So in that sense, perhaps yes. You know, but people have asked me many, many times how profoundly the experience, and again, especially the Quezon experience, changed me. And I always say, well, you know, I don't really think very much. I think it was, you know, who we were doing what we were doing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Finnegan and Dr. Feldman.
Thanks for having us.
The book is called In the Company of Marines, and people can read more and buy a book at your website.
They can do the website, but they can also go get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Which is, I guess, probably easier.
Okay.
So far as I know, there's no, I'm sorry, the National Marine Museum in Quantico
sells it as well.
Around here, that's the only place I know, other than online, where you can get it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.